An honest explanation of the Anglophone crisis in Cameroon. Hello explorers, welcome back to another informative video and thanks for watching. In this video we shall be taking a deep dive into the Anglophone crisis in Cameroon, and we shall be examining the causes and consequences of the crisis both in Cameroon and Africa. But before we continue, Cameroon is a country in Central Africa with a population of about 26 million people. The country is the lone bilingual country in the sub-region with English and French as its official languages. Its second and current president, Paul Biya, is the second longest-serving president in Africa. He took office in 1982 and for 38 years he has been at the helm of the country. For close to 4 years now, the country has been politically, economically and socially unstable due to an ongoing crisis between the English-speaking region of the country and the government. Though this crisis climax was in 2016, its causes go back way memory lane. So to better understand what caused this crisis, let's start from the very beginning. In 1472, the first Portuguese explorer, called Fernando Po, stepped foot on the land today known as Cameroon. He realized the river Wouri had lots of shrimp, so he called the area Rio dos Cameros, meaning river of prawns. Until 1884, when Germany colonized the area, Cameroon was one of the countries that was greatly impacted by the slave trade. So when the slave trade was abolished and freed slaves started returning to Africa, Alfred Secker, a Baptist missionary from Britain, named the area where the freed slaves were settling in as Victoria, today known as Limbe, in honor of the Queen of England at that time. When the Germans took over, they changed the name of the area from Rio dos Cameros to Cameroon. They instilled their way of life on the people, and for 31 years Cameroon was under German rule. When the First World War broke out in July 1914, France and Britain, who were allies, combined forces and defeated Germany. After the defeat, all former German colonies became the United Nations mandated territories. In 1919, the United Nations partitioned Cameroon between Britain and France as trusteeship territories. France was given 80% of the territory while Britain received 20%. Now the reason Britain received a smaller portion was because Britain already had control over a lot of territories, coupled with the fact that they had already started invading the Cameroon from the southwest and northwest since it was closer to Nigeria, which already belonged to them. After France and Britain took total control over these territories, they changed the name of the country from Cameroon to Cameroon, with both having different spellings. Both territories became French Cameroon and British Cameroon. France and Britain implemented their way of life and governance to their respective territories. France implemented the policy of assimilation, where they forced the locals to change everything about themselves and embrace the French culture and way of life. The locals were to speak like the French, eat like the French, and even dress like the French. Britain, on the other hand, due to its policy of divide and rule, further partitioned its own portion of Cameroon into two and named it British Northern Cameroon, which was administered as part of the Northern Nigeria, and British Southern Cameroon, which was administered as part of Eastern Nigeria. Together, both territories were administered by the British central government in Lagos. The people of British Northern Cameroon were treated fairly and had a good relationship with Northern Nigeria, while the people of British Southern Cameroon felt slighted. They were discriminated upon and treated unfairly. In 1953, the Southern Cameroon's representatives in the Eastern Nigerian legislature demanded from Britain a regional status for the Southern Cameroon with a seat of government in Buea. In 1953, three activists from Southern Cameroon by name Dr. Emmanuel Ndele Mbela, John Gu Foncha, and Solomon Tande Muna left the National Council for Nigeria and the Cameroons (NCNC), established by the British, and formed a party called Cameroon National Congress (KNC), with the sole aim of fighting for an independent Southern Cameroon. After hard struggle from the Cameroon National Congress, Britain finally accepted a legislature in Southern Cameroon. The Order in Council of 1954 established in Buea a legislative house known as the House of Assembly of the Southern Cameroon and an executive council. During this time, Southern Cameroon gained limited autonomy as a quasi-region within the Nigerian Federation. The first sitting of the newly created House of Assembly of the Southern Cameroon met on 26 October 1954. Dr. Emmanuel Mbela Lifafa Ndeli emerged as leader of the Southern Cameroon. His official title was Leader of Government Business, the reason being that the Southern Cameroon was a quasi-region and therefore only semi-autonomous. In 1955, Ndeli's political views changed and he advocated for greater integration of Southern Cameroon with Nigeria, which made Njongu Foncha and Solomon Muna to leave the party and create an opposition party called the Cameroon National Democratic Party (KNDP). In 1957, United Nations Resolutions 1064 of 26 February 1957 and 1207 of December 13, 1957 called on the administering authorities to hasten arrangements for trust territories to attain self-governance or independence. After the resolution by the United Nations, Southern Cameroon attained the status of a full region and became autonomous and fully self-governing, and the House of Chiefs was also created. This meant an election was to be conducted to vote in the new Prime Minister. The election was mainly between John Foncha's KNDP and Dr. Endele's KNC. Dr. Endele won the elections and became the first Prime Minister of Southern Cameroon. Few months later, Dr. Endele was replaced by John Foncha, whose ideologies of functioning independently from Nigeria was highly accepted by the people of Southern Cameroon. Foncha became the second Prime Minister, the 1st of February 1959. 1 month after Foncha became Prime Minister, the United Nations decided to put an end to all trusteeships by 1960. French Cameroon was the second sub-Saharan country after Guinea to gain its independence on the 1st of January 1960. Britain was asked to conduct a plebiscite in its territory with 2 options. Number 1. Do you wish to achieve independence by joining the Independence Federation of Nigeria? Number 2. Do you wish to achieve independence by joining the Independence Republic of Cameroon? The reason why British Cameroon wasn't given a third option for independence was because it had been reported that Southern Cameroon was not economically capable of sustaining itself as an independent state. During the plebiscite which took place on the 11th of February 1961, British Northern Cameroon, which had already been integrated in Nigeria, massively voted to join Nigeria, while British Cameroon reluctantly voted to join French Cameroon. Northern Cameroon eventually joined Nigeria in June 1961, while Southern Cameroon joined French Cameroon on October 1st. Northern Cameroon, which was predominantly Muslims, formed part of today's Borno, Adamawa and Taraba states of Nigeria. Since the plebiscite, 11th February is celebrated in Cameroon as Youth Day, and it's also a public holiday. Now, the choice of calling this day Youth Day instead of unification is an entirely different story. After Southern Cameroon voted to join French Cameroon, it was agreed that Britain, the UN, Southern Cameroon and French Cameroon would meet in July to discuss the terms of federation and draft the constitution. 2 weeks before the constitution, there were reports that more than 100 people were killed by terrorists in some towns in French Cameroon, particularly in Loum, Bafang, Ndom and Douala. The reports worried unification advocates who wanted British Cameroon to unify with French Cameroon. For this reason, Fumban was chosen because it was peaceful, had a good climate and had recently been renovated. The leaders of French Cameroon wanted to make an impression and portray Ahidjo as a good leader who had everything under control. Then the Southern Cameroon went to Fumban. They met in Bamenda and deliberated on points that would be included in the constitution. Among many things, the leaders of Southern Cameroon, whilst in Bamenda, agreed on a non-centralized federation to ensure that there was a distinction between the powers of the state and the powers of the federation. During the conference, which lasted 3 days, the United Nations and Britain didn't show up, leaving just the 2 Cameroons to their fate. Ahidjo, who was the president of the newly independent French Cameroon, presented a draft constitution to the people of the Southern Cameroon. A conference which was meant to establish a new constitution instead became a modification of Ahidjo's proposed constitutions. There was intense deliberations and negotiations, and due to the acts that the French Cameroon delegation outnumbered the Southern Cameroon delegation, most of the proposals presented by Southern Cameroon were rejected and just a handful were accepted. At the end of the conference, some major decisions were reached. It was concluded that the country would become the Federal Republic of Cameroon with both English and French as official languages having the same status. However, a bicameral legislature and the decentralization of power was rejected, and instead a unicameral system and a centralized system of government was adopted. According to reports, part of the Southern Cameroon delegation had wished for the conference to be extended so they could negotiate more, but some Southern Cameroonian leaders like Foncha were too happy to be reuniting with their brothers. Coupled with the fact that they were given VIP treatment during the conference, they didn't really see a need for wasting time. The constitution for the new Federal Republic was agreed in Yaoundé in August 1961 between Ahidjo and Foncha, pending approval by the House of Assembly of the 2 states. In the end, the West Cameroon House of Assembly never ratified the constitution. However, on October 1, 1961, the Federal Republic of Cameroon nevertheless came to fruition with Ahidjo as president and John Foncha as vice president. French Cameroon became East Cameroon and Southern Cameroon became West Cameroon. But for the purpose of this video, we shall continue using their former names for better understanding. On 30th September, the British administrators left the Southern Cameroons. The next day, the army of French Cameroon marched over the border. The mobile wing armed police of the Southern Cameroons was disarmed by them. It is described as a forceful takeover. An official from French Cameroon was appointed in the position of a Governor General over the Southern Cameroons. His official title was Inspecteur Fédéral d'Administration. He was accountable directly to the President of French Cameroon. Then followed a host of other French Cameroon civil servants, including subsequently its police force, which literally took over southern Cameroon. In 1965, Augustin N. Njua became the Prime Minister of Southern Cameroon, but was sacked by President Ahidjo in 1968 and replaced by St. Muna. French advisors of President Ahidjo recommended the introduction of bilingual schools to educate and assimilate Southern Cameroonians in favor of French Cameroon. The aim was to slowly absorb the Anglo-Saxon Southern Cameroonians into the Francophone hemisphere. That happened additionally to the massive deployment of administrators from East Cameroon. At this point, tensions started rising in Southern Cameroon, which led to Foncha expressing his unhappiness with Ahidjo's progressive assimilation and marginalization of the people of Southern Cameroon. Ahidjo sacked him from the position of vice president and replaced him with St. Muna in 1970. In 1972, President Ahidjo declared to conduct a referendum about the form of the state. The Southern Cameroon's lawmakers heavily opposed and rejected that idea, stating that the articles in the Fumban document that read thus, "Any proposal for the revision of the present constitution which impairs the unity and integrity of the federation shall be inadmissible, and proposals for the revision shall be adopted by simple majority vote of the members of the Federal Assembly, provided that such majority includes a majority of the representatives of each of the federated states, not through referendum." Ahidjo ignored the concerns, so under duress and to avoid bloodshed, Southern Cameroonians submitted to Ahidjo's decision. On 20th May 1972, the referendum was conducted with a favorable outcome for Ahidjo. The whole process was in violation of Article 47 of the Constitution of the Federation, which prohibited any attempts to change the federal form of the state. The name of the state was changed from Federal Republic of Cameroon to the United Republic of Cameroon. Ahidjo then divided Southern Cameroon into two parts, which he called Northwest and Southwest provinces, today known as regions. At the time, Southern Cameroonians were totally against Ahidjo's rule, and animosity started to increase among Southern Cameroonians because they felt totally disrespected and marginalized. Despite the fact that Southern Cameroonians were against Ahidjo's decisions, Cameroon as a country was doing well economically, but most resources was being moved to French Cameroon. Development projects by Southern Cameroon leaders were either rejected, cancelled or executed in French Cameroon. Due to health issues, Ahidjo could not continue as president, so he handed over power to Paul Biya, whom he had been grooming for a long time. When Biya took over power from Ahidjo, he further aggravated the whole situation by single-handedly changing the name of the country from the United Republic of Cameroon to the Republic of Cameroon, which was the initial name of French Cameroon after independence. The change led to the removal of one star from the flag, which represented the two states, implying Cameroon was one and indivisible state. Southern Cameroon, through several efforts, fought to return to federalism, but all their efforts were abortive. It was during their struggle to return to federalism, or worst-case scenario, secession, that the word Ambazonian was first used by lawyer and political activist Fon Gorgi Dinka, where he called on the people of Southern Cameroon to secede and form a new state known as the Republic of Ambazonia. It was in this light that beginning in 1984, Ambazonia was declared to represent an intervention of the people of Southern Cameroon to return to statehood of the former British Southern Cameroon's territory. The group under Gorgi Dinka believed that by operation of the law, there should be an equal participation by the two states that made up the now extinct federation in a new vision for their countries, Republic of Cameroon and the Southern Cameroons, relations with each other. In the document dubbed the New Social Order, the Ambazonians' proposal of CACIN, the Cameroon-Ambazonian Confederacy of Independent Nations, was summarily rejected by the Republic of Cameroon. Instead, the leader of ARC, Ambazonia Restoration Council, Fon Gorgi Dinka, was arrested and tried for treason for claiming the continuing existence of the sovereignty of the Southern Cameroons in the Republic of Ambazonia. During the presidential election in 1992, Southern Cameroonians and a vast majority of French Cameroonians rallied behind John Frundi because they felt if they couldn't get secession, at least they should get someone from Southern Cameroon rule the country, because they believed if they had a Southern Cameroonian as president, they would return to federalism. Unfortunately, John Frundi lost to Paul Biya. Despite the massive protests that followed the proclamation of the result due to claim of elections irregularities, Biya was sworn in as president for a second term in November. The government of French Cameroon continued to suppress the people of Southern Cameroon, and in 1994, John Foncha and Solomon Muna, both former prime ministers of the Southern Cameroons, returned to the United Nations in New York and demanded separate independence for the Southern Cameroons. The mission to the UN preceded the All-Anglophone Conference, AAC-1, which took place in Buea, bringing together all Southern Cameroonian citizens who unanimously called for the restoration of the statehood of the Southern Cameroons. A second All-Anglophone Conference, AAC-2, was held in Bamenda, at which the decisions of AAC1 were reiterated and a reasonable time given to French Cameroon to accept a return to the two-state federation, failing which the people of the southern Cameroons would be left with no other option than to revive its statehood and revise its independence. The implementation of AAC1 and AAC2 were however stalled by the brutal arrest and incarceration of the leaders of the AAC, with several others escaping into exile. The desire for self-determination remained alive in the people of southern Cameroon till October 2016, when everything escalated and took another turn. The crisis started with the teachers and lawyers' peaceful protest. The lawyers had sent an ultimatum to the government of Cameroon calling for a redeployment of French-speaking judges from English-speaking courts and the translation of the Ohada law from French to English. The Cameroon government initially responded by cracking down on lawyers' demonstrations, as well as separatist protesters and insurgents. This led to a full-fledged guerrilla war in southern Cameroon as teachers and students joined the lawyers in protest. Something that initially started as peaceful demonstration gradually metamorphosed into a full-blown civil war. The lawyers and teachers were accused to be the cause of the crisis, but in reality the ongoing crisis in Cameroon was caused by years of marginalization. On the 1st of October 2017, at the climax of the crisis, the separatists from southern Cameroon declared the independence of southern Cameroon, which led to more violence. On November 30, 2017, the president of Cameroon declared war on the Anglophone separatists. This marked the start of a very violent confrontation between government forces and armed separatists. The conflict started in Manu Division, where the Ambazonian Defense Force operated. From there, the conflict spread to other parts like Lebialem, Fako, Momo, Bui, Ngokitunja. Several different armed factions have emerged, such as the Red Dragons, Tigers, ARA, Seven Kata, ABL, amongst others. Several villages and towns have been burned down, such as Kwakwa, Kembong, Tadu in So and Muyenge. On 5th January 2018, members of the Ambazonian interim government, including its president Sisiku Julius Ayuk Tabe, were arrested in Nigeria and deported to Cameroon. They were subsequently arrested and spent 10 months at the gendarmerie headquarters before being transferred to a maximum security prison in Yaoundé. A trial started in December 2018. Fast forward to 2020, Biya's governments have tried every single measure possible to put an end to the crisis to no avail. Apparently, the people of southern Cameroon are determined to end the crisis only after they secede from French Cameroon, or at least return to the 1961 constitution drafted during the Fumban Conference. Since the beginning of the crisis, hundreds, tens and thousands of lives have been lost, property destroyed and families separated. As of the time of making this video, the crisis is still ongoing, though it has been put on hold due to the COVID-19 pandemic. As of now, there is no clear date when the crisis will end. Thanks for taking out the time to watch this video all the way to the end. We hope you now have an idea why there is a crisis in Cameroon. If you did enjoy this video, do well to give it